can we talk about the hook? What is a hook? How do you write an effective one? And can you give me an example of a really great hook that you've read recently?
The best hook that I think I've ever seen was Ralph Nader is lying on my bed reading a Conan the Barbarian comic book.
Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. I'd like to welcome Charles Loxton from Advantage Testing. Charles graduated from Vassar College with a BA in philosophy. He earned his MFA at Columbia University, where he held a departmental fellowship and was a Hertog Research Fellow. He also developed online course materials for Columbia Digital Knowledge Ventures and was a writer and researcher for Columbia's National Arts Journalism program. Before working with Advantage Testing, Charles was a film producer of award-winning documentaries, including Lali's Kin, an America Undercover documentary for HBO that earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Documentary. He is a home brewer of kombucha, a cycle commuter, and a long-suffering Knicks fan. So Charles, you're the Chief Communication Officer of Advantage Testing and the Advantage Testing Foundation. Really been looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for speaking with us and being here.
You're one of the OGs at Advantage Testing, 23 years, and you work a lot with students on the admissions application process, correct?
That's correct, yes. Like colleges, I think one of the models here is that many of us who have administrative roles, and mine is in communications, we also look for every opportunity we can to work with students because it really is a teaching organization.
I love that. And what brought you to doing the admissions counseling?
So I think of myself more as an application consultant. We have college counselors who I think fit people's presuppositions of what that role entails, matching students with colleges, helping reduce the selection to a manageable list. I do that sort of informally with all my clients we talk about, but what I'm really there for is to help them formulate their essays, and that includes the primary personal essay and the supplements for each school. And that's something that I think is a really fun opportunity for the student, yes, because it's an opportunity to do something that you may not have had the chance to do in your academic career, which is really to tell a story. And it doesn't have to be your story per se, right? You don't have to encapsulate your entire life history in 650 words, but it's a story that is personal and true, and that reflects something about yourself. And so it's an opportunity for that task, which I think is a great opportunity for every person, especially every young person. It's also an opportunity within the admissions process, because there's so many different ways to reflect your credentials, right? Your transcript speaks to your academic interests and to your accomplishments, your achievements, your honors and awards, your extracurricular list. Some students submit a resume. Your teacher recommendations will talk about what kind of student you are in a classroom environment. Maybe you'll have a recommendation from a coach or a mentor or an employer. But there's not that much opportunity to really say, this is the kind of person I am, to reflect personal characteristics that may not come across anywhere else. And that's why I think students should really enjoy the opportunity to write this essay. And I think by the end of it, most of them do, but a lot of them approach it as a burden.
They certainly do. And I think you put it very beautifully, the idea of why an essay matters. I get a lot of pushback on social media with people saying it should just be about test scores and grades. And having sat in the chair where you are receiving all of these applications and having to decision them, a person is so much more then you need the grades, you need the test scores, you need to be able to excel, but I think you captured really beautifully the importance of that essay. When you're sitting down with a student at first, right, because as you point out, this is a very daunting task. These are 17, 18-year-olds. They might not ever have had to be this deeply reflective about themselves and their journey. Where do you start?
That's a great question. I think it does depend a lot on the student. A student may come to you with a very clear idea of what they want to do, and I think
Yes.
you listen to that student. But sometimes you start from, I have a philosophy background, and sometimes you start with a process of negation.
Yes.
What is the essay not? What is not the essay? And it's not a cover letter. I think that's very important. Right? You don't want students to say, this is who I am, these are my accomplishments, this is why I think I'm a good match for your college. Again, the Common App, I think, is now a really well done administrative tool
Yes.
to contextualize the student's academic career to that point. And that's what that is for. But because of that, you don't need a cover letter to explain
Correct.
what my common application is about. So I usually ask students to think about just what has been meaningful in their lives, what is something that they care about, because that's the most important thing.
Well, and I think it's interesting, and would love to hear your thoughts on the kind of intersection of your film career and essay writing, because at its core, it's about storytelling, right? And so how and why does storytelling matter in the context of the essays?
I love that question. A couple of things.
Okay.
I think that storytelling as a concept can be a little bit mystical. I think one of the things that I learned from nonfiction filmmaking and nonfiction writing, is that you can come to storytelling with good intentions, right? But storytelling is really a structure. It's various
Yes.
techniques. It's organizing events in a certain way with a certain purpose. What I found in nonfiction is that the most important thing that you can do is listen to your subject. That's the first step, because listening is really the foundational communicative act, right?
Right.
So if you come to a process and you say, I want to tell a story that reveals X, and your subject is a nonfiction subject, and in the personal essay that you're writing, the subject is you, a
Exactly.
nonfiction subject, it may not work out. You may not be listening to what the real story is. So I worked for a wonderful man and a truly seminal American filmmaker named Al Maisels. They did some of the truly best American documentaries. And he was a film geek and was very much about technique and certain things. But his subjects, of all of his films, his subjects just adored him and connected with him because he listened to them. And that's why he was able to tell their stories in a way that so many people would not. So to bring it back to the essay, I think that if you listen to a student, you will hear what excites them, you'll hear what motivates them. And then once you are able to connect that to a storytelling process, the work is done. They get excited about it and they're good to go.
And so I've actually done this. I've been in the trenches reading files nonstop during reading season. I'm tired, I'm cranky, I've seen it all 100 times this week alone. How do you get my attention? How do you coach your students into getting my attention and make me pay attention, not only pay attention to your essay, but also become invested in your story?
Right. Well, again, I think that if you focus on technique, you're going to be potentially going down the wrong path. Okay. Meaning, if your intention is to hook the reader's interest and then dazzle the reader with smooth transitions and clever callbacks and these sorts of techniques that strong writing typically reveals, then you may miss the mark, because what's at the core, the substance beneath that technique is sort of just not something that a reader will connect with. And as I said earlier, if you are motivated by your subject, if the thing that you are discussing moves you, then that will come across. That true, authentic passion will come across. And this is very important when you meet a student. I've had many students come to me and say, well, I really have to write about this. And I say, why do you have to write about this? Yeah. What do you mean? And they say, well, it's my most important extracurricular. And I say, well, then yes. that's very obvious. You don't have to write about that. You can write about whatever you want that motivates you. Another thing I'm sure we hear all the time from counselors is, you have to write about you. Don't write about something else.
Okay.
And that is true, but you can reveal so much about yourself through how you approach a subject, whether that is your grandmother and your relationship with her. If I've had students who have written about important relatives in their lives.
Right.
It's not about those relatives. It's about their relationship with those relatives and how much that has meant to them in their lives. Right. And when that comes across in the page, I would suspect for you, when you see true feeling,
it resonates.
It resonates.
It does, and I do get a lot of pushback on social media because I actually specifically advocate against talking about family members, because, to your point, it's very hard to do. And when you do it well, it's brilliant. But I would say most of the attempts that I read on that tend to focus too much on the other person.
Yeah.
Right. And you hit that balance. You're like, you have to show yourself through that other person. And so many people just don't make that last step. But yes, when you do it right, I couldn't agree with you more. It is brilliant.
No, I think
yes.
Fair point. And yes, don't write about family members. as general advice, I think is sound family advice, because you do tend to get caught up in their presence.
Yes.
It is more challenging to then make sure that your presence is coming through.
Are there any particular subjects you steer your students away from?
I mean, this may be a question for you. I think we've long heard that mental health discussions can be a red flag. I think that that's very unfortunate. I think that, when a mental health issue is a part of a student's story, they shouldn't be told you can't discuss that, because that's just enhancing the stigma. And I don't think there should be stigma. But I also do understand that it does create a burden on the student's application to think that this is a person who may struggle. And I think, I suspect many admissions officers want to know that people will be integrated into their communities and thrive.
Right.
So that's, I understand that perspective, but I think students are told that that's a red flag issue, and I don't know if it should be. I just have sort of ambivalent feelings about that.
It really is not, interestingly, and just completely anecdotally, just recently in this last cycle, I had two students who struggled with some issues and went through some very, very tough times. But both of them turned it into a positive. And so being able to articulate, I went through this and it was awful. And so I took steps to make sure other people didn't. And I, formed this club, and we expanded it to different schools, and I was able to reach this many students. And I speak on this now, and that's not the right path for everybody, but I think the context matters, and like, okay, you faced this struggle, and what did you do with it? Because it shows tremendous resilience, which is something admissions officers do want in a class. So yes, and I know that I get a lot of questions about, well, do I disclose a learning challenge or something? And absolutely, it helps put your accomplishments and your growth and your path into context.
Yeah, that's exactly right, I think. And to your point, that's a very powerful story. That's a very powerful narrative arc. But again, when you listen to a student, sometimes you find that they're not at that
Exactly.
point in their arc. And that's fine, and that's okay.
Right.
Then maybe you wouldn't want to tell this story right now. If you're still in the heart of struggle and you're not quite sure where the end is or where this story is going, maybe you don't want to be focusing on that right now. But I think the worst thing in that situation would be to say, impose for the sake of narrative this resolution that you have not yet achieved.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, and I think again that sort of inauthenticity. I mean, as you know, I mean, one skill that teenagers seem to have universally is they're all outstanding BS detectors, right?
Yes.
And then so if you were to ask them to do something so inauthentic about something so significant to them, I think that would not be a good result.
No, and also, from admissions officer's point of view, and I always say this, there's nowhere to hide in an application. Yeah. We're going to see it. And I definitely, I'm sure you've come across this as well, students and parents that are like, well, we're just going to ignore that. And maybe they won't notice, but we always notice. And as long as you get ahead of it and talk about it, either in the main essay or the additional information essay, you're fine. We just want to know what happened, right?
This show is brought to you by Early Edge Plus, Admittedly's flagship coaching program for high-achieving students and their families. At Admittedly, we've built a team of former admissions officers from top schools like Wharton, Duke, Stanford, Yale, Harvard, and University of Chicago. We know what actually gets students into top colleges because we've been in the room making those decisions. If you want that insider perspective, visit admittedly.co/apply. That's admittedly.co/apply to book your free family action call with one of our admissions advisors today.
I love the additional information essay.
And tell me about your approach to that.
Well, I just think it's this wonderful opportunity, right? I mean, the prompt is pretty straightforward. It's something to the effect of, if there's anything you feel we ought to know that you have not had the opportunity to articulate elsewhere, then do so here. Now, I don't think that students should use that space for its own sake. Not you guys, admissions.
No, thank you for that warning label, because so many students try and just jam an extra essay in.
No need to do that, right?
Yes.
But I think that most students have more to say.
Absolutely.
And I think that there is a real opportunity in that essay, whether it's, a bullet point list. Here are the squash tournaments that I've won gold medals in.
Yes.
Great, put that there, because you can't put that in 150 characters on your extracurricular activities. But I do say the one thing you can't do, the absolute one thing you can't do, well, there's two things you can't do. One, you can't just submit another personal essay.
Correct.
I had two good ones, I couldn't choose.
We'll see.
Take whichever you like more. And the other thing you really can't do, and this actually, and I know you will believe me when I tell you this actually came up. Could I write a 1,200-word essay and say continued in the additional info section?
Oh, no.
And I said, I think admissions officers, bless them, read a lot of applications. And I think that might be considered a bit of a burden.
It would not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you also work with students looking at UCAS personal statements?
I do, yes.
And what would be the difference between a Common App personal statement and a UCAS one?
Well, so I think what you said there, the Common App, a lot of people call it a personal statement. I think that's a misnomer. And in fact, in the Common App itself, they're careful to just say, I've seen both. It says either essay or personal essay.
Personal essay.
Right, that's right. They just call it the personal essay. A personal statement is very different, right? A personal statement is something that you use to apply to a graduate program, to an MBA, to a law degree, right? To a master's program in a specific field. What you're doing is you're articulating your reasons for pursuing this degree, how they relate to your long-term goals, and why the degree itself is a necessary component of pursuing those long-term goals. Right? Every graduate/professional program needs to know that. That's very important information. And UCAS sort of treats the college education similarly. You tend to apply in a lot of different ways into a course, into a specific field of study. And so what you're doing is you're making a personal statement. You're saying, this is why I have pursued this course of study. This is why I want to pursue it at your institution. And this is where I hope to go with it, what I hope to achieve with it. And that's very, very different from the personal essay task that we get on the Common App.
Very different. And then I guess the third of several other modalities, the third one we'll talk about, the UC application prompts, right?
Yeah.
Those 4 personal information questions, quite different from the structure of the Common App. How do you approach that?
Those are very similar to the supplements. And again, I love the supplements, and I think the supplements are invaluable in the process because they're written by the schools themselves, right? Everybody uses the Common App prompt universally, but those supplements are things that the admissions officers have gone together and sat down and brainstormed and said, what do we want to know about this student?
Right.
And so, you know, if they want to know why you want to go to their school in particular, that's a very important one. And you need to be able to articulate why this school matches your goals and your interests so well. If they want to know about an extracurricular, that's obviously a great opportunity to do that. And again, one of the reasons why I say you don't need to focus on your strongest extracurricular in the Common App.
Right.
You have your supplements, you have your additional info. The UC prompts, I like them very much. I think that a lot of students will apply through both the Common App and the UC students.
Exactly.
You know, they're shorter, but they cover more ground. And I think that they are a different task, but they are the same approach. You just want to identify. You want to listen to the prompt first, right?
Yes,
this is
you
very
do.
important, right? Sometimes you'll get these great responses, but they're not actually what the question is about. And you might find a match elsewhere, but you really have to probe, what is this prompt about? Why are they asking me this question? Right. And then be sure you answer it, and answer it with authenticity and energy, and you should be great.
And admissions officers are smart.
Yeah.
And they make subtle gradations in those questions specifically to catch the copy and paste students that are rushing before a deadline. So that was brilliantly said. Thank you.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
And you know, about that sort of why this school essay, I think it's important to make that point, which is that what you're really doing there is you are, you know, it's ostensibly about the school, but again, it's really about you, right? What you're discussing is how your aspirations and ambitions and interests align with what the school has to offer in its academic resource and opportunities and leadership roles and all of these resources that the school gives you. So you look inside first and you say, this is what I envision my next 4 years to be. And then you look at each one of those schools very carefully that has this prompt, and you really, I tell students, like, dream, right? This is your opportunity to get excited. Like, really imagine yourself at this school. Go through the website, say, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this.
And follow it to its natural conclusion. It's amazing.
When you get that wow, start writing.
Yeah.
Right? And then now the framework that you build out, this is what I'm hoping to achieve. There may be similarities in your essays from one school to the next, but those specific details, those resources that you find, that's what's going to animate that essay.
And it's very clear as a reader when the student is animated, when the student is simply swapping out this course, and that
That's
professor.
Right. Oh, it's so clear.
It's so clear.
right? This is not a pandering exercise,
No.
right? You just
No.
they know they're great. You don't need to blow smoke and say, you're renowned faculty.
Oh, please, diverse student body, world-class
they
faculty.
know all the
Yes,
great things they
exactly.
have, right? But when you say the fact that I can sort of do this experiential learning where I can go into this community and actually take what I'm learning in the classroom and evoke it in the real world is something that means the world to me.
Exactly.
Then of course you see that is the student really means it.
2 final questions. First one, can we talk about the hook? What is a hook? How do you write an effective one? And can you give me an example of a really great hook that you've read recently or whenever?
The best hook that I think I've ever seen was Ralph Nader is lying on my bed reading a Conan the Barbarian comic book.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that.
Don't you want to know what happened
Yeah,
there?
no, exactly.
And it turned out that I think Ralph Nader was a college friend of this guy's dad, and so a friend of the family, and he would routinely come and stay with them, and he would typically sleep in this guy's bed, and he would sleep on the couch or in his brother's room, and it became an essay about, it wasn't obviously a name-dropping essay, right? Ralph Nader is this, important public figure, and it became an essay of sort of Ralph Nader reading this book and enjoying it, but also asking the probing questions to say sort of, but what else is there, Alex? Where are you really going with all of this? And so obviously that's a great hook because you want to find out why Ralph Nader is reading Conan the Barbarian, and you want to find out what the relationship is. I don't want to understate the importance of catching a reader's interest, and of course you can and you should. I think we've all seen the cliches of starting in the present tense with some active scene that immediately throws the reader in the heart of the action. Right, this is Horace and Medias Res. You start in the middle of things. It's a great way to begin. It's a great way to structure. When I was in my graduate school writing workshops, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's like sort of 8 writing nerds getting together and reading each other's work and say, every week and talking about it. The thing that always happened, right, is over the course of the 90 minutes that we were together, or 3 hours that we were together sometime, somebody would say, this line here, 8 pages in, I think that should be your first line. And we'd all say, oh yeah, that's right. That's the perfect way to begin this essay. And no one ever began with their ultimate first line. It was always something that they discovered in the process. And so when you begin with trying to hook the reader's interest, I think you're already maybe perhaps taking a misstep in that you're focusing on the wrong thing. Tell your story, present it in a way that makes sense, but also keeps your interest in the telling, and that hook will emerge.
I always encourage my students to write the hook last.
Yeah, exactly.
Write the essay and then write the hook last.
Exactly.
I want to be respectful of your time, so I have just one more question for you.
Sure.
Is there any other additional information you'd like to share with our followers? I couldn't resist.
Fair enough. I think that, as I say, the essay is a marvelous opportunity, and I just really hope that students have fun with it. I think that it's an opportunity to engage in a fun task, and you should jump in wholeheartedly. There may be bad topics. I mean, you asked a little bit earlier, right? I think anything that shows you to be a cretin, a bigot, anything
Certainly.
that reveals a not empathetic, generous, thoughtful, compassionate person is not great. But there are no bad ideas, and you should jump in and really embrace the process. And if you do that with passion and with intention, then I think you'll learn a lot about yourself and a lot about writing as well. And I think that's a great part of the process.
And as I would expect, a brilliant conclusion. So thank you very much, Charles. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you. And if there's more you'd like to learn about developing your story and the story of the Admittedly and Advantage Testing Partnership, please go to our website, www.admittedly.co/programs. You can also follow us on our socials @AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. If you have questions about your essay, your hook, your story, I'd love to hear them. Please drop them in the comments. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media @AdmittedlyPodcast. I look forward